It's Talk Funny, a podcast by Mark Bailey and other comics from all over. We ended up in Japan because we wanted to see a place where mayonnaise is considered a salad dressing. The Talk Funny podcast from NagoyaRadio.com and Nagoya Comedy. Here's Mark Bailey.
Mark Bailey, Mike Miller, and Talk Funny.
We're back.
Let's do a quick thing on sumimasen. So when I first came here, I had kind of a mentor in Japanese. He was a foreign guy, and he was funny. He always wanted to be a comic. And his name was Bill. And I'm going to say his last name now. I'm not going to because he's in prison for murdering his girlfriend at a picnic. So anyway, I learned a lot from him.
Anyway,
What do you say?
we don't consort with criminals. We just
Bada boom,
know
bada bing.
of criminals. That's all.
What do people say? They tell a story, and it's like one thing led to another, and anyway, so he's in prison for... Anyway, so... Bada bing,
As
bada
things
boom.
do. You know,
Bada bing, bada
one
boom.
thing does lead to a cause and effect. You know, it kind of
Bada
happens.
bing, bada boom. You know, yada, yada, yada.
Yada,
And
yada,
then he's in
yada,
prison
death
now
row,
for
yada,
murdering
yada,
his
yada.
girlfriend. Anyway, he was good at Japanese, yada, yada, yada. Took her to a picnic and killed his Japanese girlfriend.
Yeah, not a good idea. I would not
Yada,
recommend
yada,
that.
yada. But so when I first came here,
Oh, we're going to hell for this podcast.
he's the one. So I came to Japan, and then...
I don't know this person. By
He's
the way.
you don't know him.
I don't
You
know this
him.
person. I never
and
met him.
he's
Not
in
being
prison.
honest.
I mean, he really is in prison.
Okay.
For life.
Wow.
And as you do.
Well, you kill your girlfriend.
come
That's a
to
pretty good reason to
Japan.
go to prison, I would say. Yeah,
But he was
that's a good reason.
he was a maven. He was a genius on learning Japanese, and he gave me a lot of good tips.
Hmm.
And the first thing he told me was, I said, "How do you say excuse me?" He said, "See what I'm saying? See what I'm saying? See what I'm saying? See what I'm saying? See what I'm saying?" I'm like, "That's how you said it." He goes, "See what I'm saying?"
That's smart.
Sumimasen. He had kind of a
It's a mnemonic.
he had a Kansas City accent.
Some people are really good with coming up with mnemonics for
Well,
stuff.
That's the way I look.
Yeah, that's a great. It's the best way to learn. If anyone wants to learn a language, we recommend
And I said-
mnemonics.
I
At
told
least
him-
at the beginning, because
Yeah.
at the beginning everything sounds like noise to you. You don't understand anything in the beginning.
If you say my name is Tanaka Kenji in Japanese, and they say it fast, and they go,
Yeah.
it says, what? Jesus, that's a lot of syllables.
Yeah.
You know, I just want to learn simple stuff like how do you say thank you? Arigato.
Yeah.
That sounds like a lot of syllables. Arigato. Sounds like a lot of syllables.
A lot of letters.
Well, okay, forget arigato. That's too long. How about you're welcome? Doitashimashite. What?
Yeah.
Doitashimashite. What?
Yeah. That's hard.
Doitashimashite. Isn't there an easier way?
No. There's no easier way.
How about
This is
okay,
Japanese. There's no
okay.
easy way.
My mentor, Bill, I said, I don't believe you. I don't believe see what I'm saying is, excuse me, it doesn't sound right.
So then you tried it and it
So
worked,
we went
right?
on the subway, and he goes, we're going to walk through the subway from this car to the end car, and we're just going to keep going. See what I'm saying? See what I'm saying? See what I'm saying? See what I'm saying? People on your way, go, see what I'm saying? And they get out of the way.
That's smart.
Like, amazing. And then, so I came up with my own.
He was smart enough to figure that out, but not smart enough to get away with murder.
There's no such thing.
He should have applied some smarts to the other part of his
He should
life.
have learned how to say perfecto kuraimu. So, of course, I passed level 1 in Japanese, and you have to come up with mnemonics. And
Especially for
mnemonics-
kanji.
Yeah.
Kanjis are very hard to remember.
But especially the sound, for me, the sound.
Yeah.
So the mnemonics, you learn them, and then you forget the link, the silly link that you made.
Yes.
So I can barely remember most of them, but I
But you remember the meaning and you remember how to write it and you remember.
you're able to translate, and you forgot the link. But
Yes.
you're able to translate. You can't remember why you remember it, but you do.
It's kind of like when you're building a building. You have scaffolding on the outside, and then when the building is finished, you take the scaffolding away, and you
'Cause
don't
need
it anymore.
That's
And then
exactly right.
you remember, and that's kind of what we're talking about.
Perfect analogy. And so, for example, tsumaranai, that's one of the ones I remember.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember all the Japanese words, but if I'm teaching you Japanese, I can't remember the convenient way to remember because I forgot the scaffolding.
This is why knowing a language and teaching a language are two different things. You can know a language very well and not be able to teach it.
Yeah.
And we've experienced that many times
So
in
for
our lives.
tsumaranai, you have to think, what does it sound like to you? Tsumaranai means boring.
Yeah.
What does it sound like? Tomorrow night.
Oh, that's a good way to remember it.
Tomorrow night. So, and boring, if you're thinking like a Japanese person, they say bowling. I think bowling is boring.
Yes. Easy
Bowling
to
is
remember.
boring. Tomorrow night is bowling.
It's
and
boring.
that's boring. And you remember, that's a long story.
It's a mnemonic. And for whatever reason, and this is the thing I really don't understand, we never teach mnemonics in school to kids. There's
I've
a guy,
never ever seen it in a textbook ever.
Anthony Metiver, I think is his name. He does the Magnetic
The
Memory
Room.
podcast.
Yeah,
he is an expert in mnemonics, and he has an amazing podcast that will teach you all this stuff
The
if you
Memory
want to learn.
Castle.
Memory Palace. Memory Palace.
Memory Palace.
And I did it once. I used a Memory Palace once because I was having trouble remembering my jokes. So I visualized the jokes in different parts of my apartment, and then I walked through my apartment, and I didn't need any notes that
when
time.
I went to Tokyo, I had to memorize my jokes, and so that's how I did it.
And it's actually the best way to do it is you go to that bar where you're going to perform, and then you visualize it in that bar.
Yeah.
But most people don't have that. We don't have that ability. So you make a room in your mind that's your apartment or your house or a place you know very well, and then you put the items that represent the different things in different places. That's basically the gist of it. And that's how, in ancient times, that's how these great orators were able to give these 5-hour speeches, because they didn't, before...
It came from Rome and maybe Greece, Roman Greece.
Yeah, Roman Greece. That's why they
started
call it the Roman room. They call it the Roman room method or the Memory Palace, yeah.
Well, the way I did it, and you can do this up to hundreds of words that you need to remember. And the way I did it is I have a bedroom on the 3rd floor of my house. I start from the drapes, which is the furthest part of that room, and I can see it all.
You got to have a route. You go in a certain direction, right?
And so, and then the table that's there where I put my water, that's another word I want to use, and I link that to water. And yada, 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 past level 1.
Yeah, it's funny because, like I said, this is how ancient people remembered everything.
Yeah.
One of the things we don't
Paper
realize
was very scarce.
there
Paper wasn't even
paper. There was no paper. There was before
didn't
writing.
exist.
Before writing, people were using these techniques, and that's why there's this woman who wrote this book about. We're getting kind of nerdy here, but there's a woman who wrote a book about Stonehenge, and she thinks that Stonehenge and these ancient megalithic structures were kind of memory palaces where people would go, they would tell the stories, they would look at the rock, and each part of the rock was kind of something to remind them of a story. And people always go like, oh, these old stories, they're just useless, they're just like fables, blah, blah, blah. The reality is, this is how they kept all of their knowledge about the stars. Like, when is spring coming?
Right.
We need to know when spring is coming. Well, when this star is in this position. So you tell that to someone, when, the Big Dipper is down here, this is summer, when the Big Dipper is up here. They're not going to remember. You make a story. Well, you see, there was this giant bear, and when the seasons come, and the bear comes, like, you make stuff up. And that's mnemonics.
That's why they did parables, and that's how they learned to translate.
And that was the original Bible, too. It was oral. It was not
They
written.
do parables, and that's how you translate Hebrew to Greek. You know all the words to the parable,
Right.
and then you do what they call the word tree. Yeah.
Yes.
So everything related to a fish, fin,
Yep.
and that's the first thing I did when I came here for Japanese. I wanted to get jobs. I had to explain what I did before. So I had to learn the word for speechwriter. I had to learn the word giin for House of Representatives. I had to learn radio kyoku, a radio station. Kyoku, which also means song.
And this is something people who come to Japan, if you're coming to be a teacher, especially if you're working in a public school, you've got to have your little shtick memorized. Jiko shokai is called in Japanese. Self-introduction. That's the first thing you learn.
If you like art, learn those words.
Yes.
If you like boobs, learn areola. And
Please don't. We want to keep our jobs.
Parables. Okay, so what's the guy's name again? The Memory Palace?
Anthony Metiver.
Yeah.
Is his
I
name.
took his course. It's on Udemy.
Yes.
Which I highly recommend. It's not expensive, maybe $15.
Oh, yeah.
And he mentions that the phrase from English in the first place comes from that.
Oh.
We say, well, in the first place.
Oh.
That's where it comes from. That's
I
the first
see. It's in the palace in your memory. In the first place, in the second place, in the third place.
Why did you come to Japan? Well, in the first place.
Oh, interesting.
That's the order. That's the top, right?
It's like we're so used to using text in our societies that we've completely forgotten these techniques. And these techniques are really useful, and especially learning foreign languages, because when you're learning a foreign language, you want to speak it, you don't have a dictionary in front of you. You're in the street. You want to talk to a guy. You want to ask someone something. You have to recall it, and this is the secret to getting that memory out.
I never continued this, but for a brief time, I had learned Japanese on YouTube. I had a channel, and it just took so much time, and I didn't make much money. Not like the way we're raking it in.
We're making no money right now.
Comedy. Thank you, Spotify, for nothing.
Thank you, Spotify. So let's have a shout out. I just want to give a shout out to Spotify because we're on Spotify.
We just want to hide this in that you really don't need to buy any of the. Don't patronize.
Any
don't
of the
patronize
businesses.
us.
Yes.
Don't patronize the sponsors. We don't get anything.
We don't get any money from Spotify. So if you're listening to this on Spotify and you want to support the podcast, the best thing you can do is not buy any of the products featured in the advertisements. It's just putting that out there. Look, we understand Spotify. We understand you guys have to keep your business afloat. We get that. But you're a multi-million. You can pay Joe Rogan $100 million. I think you can
Nothing
afford.
for us?
I think you can afford to pay us a little bit.
Could we get maybe $20?
Yeah, $20, $30. Could we even financially support the podcast slightly?
Yeah.
I mean, it's.
They have ads in Spanish on this podcast. They have ads in Hindi. I've heard,
what are we
I've
gonna?
heard them. I've heard
We gonna
them.
start singing spirituals or something? Like what? What the?
Maybe we
what the heck is going on here, man?
Maybe we got to start
Let
doing.
my people go.
Maybe we got to
I feel-
start doing conspiracy theories so nobody wants to advertise on
That's a
us.
great idea. Let's do some unlistenable content,
All right,
some
I'll
unmonetizable content.
I just remember one more mnemonic that I used. I put that on the YouTube channel. It's probably still up there. The word for review and also the word for revenge is the same, different kanji, but it's fukushu.
Fukushu. Oh, it's revenge. I did not know that.
Fukushu means revenge.
You see, I
and
never
review.
used that word.
They're different kanji, revenge.
Yeah, I
and
know
review.
fukushu for review, but I didn't know revenge was fukushu.
Fukushu, it's the same fuku. Fuku can mean happiness, but it
yes.
also means redoing
Yes,
something.
re.
So,
It's basically re. It's a
revenge,
prefix. Yeah.
it's the same as Latin. Revenge and review, it's the same
Mm-hmm.
R-E. And the way I remember it is, let's focus on revenge. So
Oh, that's
you-
a good way to remember.
You could stab a guy. When you do a mnemonic, you've got to make it either
Sexual
sexually
or violent.
Exactly. Sexually
Sexual or violent,
It's weird
yeah.
how we said sexually graphic at the same time. I don't like the way you looked at me when you said that.
Throwback to the last podcast.
Sexually
I looked at
graphic.
him with wide eyes.
That's exactly right. Sexually graphic or violent.
yes.
Or ridiculous.
Yes. Which is why there's a webpage you can go to called Kanji Damage, Kanji Damage, which is basically they do that.
Right.
It's a little bit racist, though. I think some of their memes are a little racist, but they try to make it sexually explicit or violent. So it's not for kids.
Okay, so for fukushu, for revenge, because that's more violent than review. Review is boring. But a word for about fukushu, all right, you could stab a guy. Or what if you wanted to be really passive-aggressive, get him back? Maybe you get his shoe. What could you do to his shoe? Could you F his shoe? And you spell that out.
Yeah.
That's a very graphic image
Yes.
of you effing a shoe.
Yeah.
And that'll teach him.
We're
It taught
definitely
me.
we're
It taught
go-
me, fukushu.
We're definitely getting explicit on this one. Oh my god!
And I'll leave you with one
I love
more.
my job.
The last one is a very convenient word, kyo, which means today, and we don't have that sound in English. We don't
Kyo.
have any words, Kyoto, but we don't have any words in English.
Yes.
Kyo.
We don't have
We don't have
kyo.
that cluster.
And this is another thing, if we can leave with one last thing that I can say to people learning Japanese that you probably already know, because the level of Japanese education teaching has gotten a lot better since when I was studying. I mean, there's a lot more resources. One of the most important things to do is learn your hiragana and your katakana, because then you understand how the Japanese language works. Don't study in Romaji. Don't study using Roman characters, because you're going to bring your pronunciation from English into Japanese,
Also,
and it
don't do
doesn't
that-
sound good.
Don't do that in Korean and don't do that in Chinese.
Exactly. Same. Learn Hangul.
Chinese.
It's very easy. Chinese, yeah, that's a bit of a task. It's like Japanese. Actually, I think Chinese is probably easier than Japanese in some ways, because they don't have different readings. They just have one reading,
we're
right?
going to get letters from that.
Uh-oh.
Mike
Here we
Miller
go.
at yahoo.com. Are you think, so
I feel
Chinese
sorry
are
for the
simple?
guy who is Mike Miller at Yahoo.com. He's getting all these
Chinese-
mails. He's like, I don't know what podcast are they talking about?
So the Jordan Peterson meme. So what you're saying is Chinese are simple? No, I said that simple
Kanji is the best
You
and
just
most
called
advanced
kanji simple.
writing.
That's what
no,
it's called. It's
Hanji.
called simple kanji.
Hanja, Hanzi. What is it in Chinese? They say Hanji.
Hanzi.
Hanzi. In Korean, they call it Hanja. And in Japanese, kanji is the most subtle and beautiful writing system in the world, and I will say that. So
And the
please
people are
don't
wonderful.
send emails to that poor Mike Miller
The
at
people are
yahoo.com.
wonderful, and they never
They're
break
wonderful.
line.
Everything's when they never break in line. They never yell.
don't have
it's
halitosis.
awesome. It's wonderful.
Halitosis.
The best people. The best people.
Halito says.
People are saying.
Okay, so I've got to do my meme for kyo, which means today.
Yes.
Which we don't have that sound. But if you say if that kyo, it sounds like kill.
Oh, interesting.
Gonna
Okay.
kill today. Gonna
Yeah.
kill today. 'Cause
Kill
I'm gonna
today. I'm going to kill it.
I'm gonna kill it. Fukushu. I'm gonna F that shoe. Right.
That sounds like, what's his name? Who's the guy who does the Gary V? It almost sounds like Gary V.
Yeah.
Gonna kill today. Gonna kill today. Get up, rise and grind, man.
I got a kind of very Jewy autistic kind of brain, and I have a phonographic memory. I really do.
You do.
I really
Mark,
fixate on sounds.
Mark will remember so well, like, if you tell a joke that's even mildly related to a joke he told, like in 1985,
I'll get
he will get you, and he will say, I told that in 1985 at
It doesn't even have
Caroline's.
to be my joke. It could be Bill Burr's joke, and I'll say,
Oh, yeah.
Bill Burr did that 18 years ago.
Yes. And it happens all the time, not out of spite, not out of necessarily. It's just that all that stuff is out in the consciousness. All that stuff is out online, and you absorb it, and subconsciously you repeat it, and you don't realize where you heard it.
I mean, even Robin Williams did that. He was notorious for
Oh,
doing
apparently
that.
Robin
He
Williams
didn't do
was
it on purpose.
No, but yeah,
He's
I
just so
heard-
high on coke, he can't remember.
I think so. I mean, I was reading something though. They said that he used a lot of other people's jokes.
So what I was going to say about Japanese can't help you with the memes because they don't hear kill.
Yes.
When they say kill. They hear today.
Yes.
It sounds like today.
Well, when it's your
It is
native
today.
language. When it's your native language, you don't need that.
And when
you
you-
learn it naturally when it's your native
When
language,
you
right?
get used to reading kanji, I don't know about you, maybe I'm kind of effed up or something, but when I look at the kanji for Inu,
Yeah.
I do see a dog.
Oh,
I see
okay.
a little dog in a guy's hand.
Oh,
But
that's
when
a
I
good
first
way.
saw it, it's like, that's weird. But what you got to understand is...
It's a big dog.
Yeah, the
'Cause it's
dog
big.
is in his hand.
Yeah,
it's a
yeah,
guy
yeah.
with a little puppy in his
Yeah,
hand.
that's a good idea.
And he's
Good way
really
of
close
doing
to
it.
the oven.
Yes.
No, I'm sorry, that's Korea.
Oh, whoa, hey,
Mike
hey,
Miller
call
at
back.
yahoo.com. Javon Gary at yahoo.com.
Jim and Garrett.
What I was getting at is, I've told my wife, I've told Japanese people tomorrow night, they don't
Yeah.
get it. They don't understand tomorrow
No.
night. They don't get it.
It's their native language. They don't have to get it.
And so
It's scaffolding. They don't need it because
but
they learn it
also,
naturally, right?
They don't learn it by sound. If you ever ask a Japanese person, what does tagayasu mean? So it means to till the ground.
Uh-huh.
Tagayasu, watch their fingers. They draw the kanji.
Yes. You'll see people drawing the kanji with their
Draw
fingers all the time.
kanji,
Yeah.
And then they remember the meaning.
Yes.
But if you ask me, what I did was the Memory Palace, when I had a horrible job in Aishin, and I had to walk,
At that company. Not Aishin.
and worked at Toyota, and they had no brakes day on Friday. There's no brakes day.
You got no brakes. You got no
It's-
brakes. I just wanted a break. That's all I wanted.
So what I had to do is I walked through Aishin. It was a really long walk
Yeah.
to get to the company class.
Yeah.
And there's a warehouse, there's a coffee shop, blah, blah, blah. I changed all the names. what it
you
was
used
called.
that path to remember
Yeah.
the different words.
And I walked by a little field, and I named that field Tagayasu, which means to till.
Oh, yes.
So it didn't have a name. I guess I did maybe 30 places. And
Uh-huh.
then when I walk back, I walk on a different road and another 30
Mm-hmm.
words.
So you're every time you're commuting, you're walking, you're learning at the same
Yeah.
time. You're remembering.
And you see a bank, and that's iwake. That's an excuse.
Ah,
Iwake,
okay.
excuse. Has nothing to do with a bank.
Yeah.
So you have to make up a story, and you say, I need an excuse to go to the bank because I'm actually moving all
That's-
my money
Yeah.
away from that ball and chain.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my, John Lovitz. And I hear John Lovitz go,
Yeah.
that's the,
Yeah.
I'm going
You see,
to the bank. I'm
you
going
can,
to the bank.
This was years ago, and you can still remember that. So that
Yeah.
just goes to show you how powerful these techniques
This
are.
was probably 30 years ago.
30 years ago, and you still remember.
I still remember, and I still remember some of the links.
Yeah.
But eventually, once you learn, I'll put you on the spot here, Mike. You know the answer. We haven't discussed this before. Permission, Japanese.
Permission kyoka.
That's
Kyoka.
right. Okay, so I don't know how you learned that, but you forgot the link, but you remember.
Right.
Boom, you could just click. It's like a word card. In my mind, I
Yeah.
see a word card because that's
Yeah.
how I learned it, right? Okay, Mark Bailey, Mike Miller, talk about it.